Good morning, Leanie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Mary. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, except for my lapses of memory. Just a little while ago, I think you witnessed that with me, that I thought of something and then forgot it in the instant I thought of it.
It's amazing how that happens, isn't it?
I know.
I don't know how often I walk into the kitchen and I stand there and I ask myself, why did I come in here? Then I turn around and I go back and I go, oh, now I remember. Go back into the kitchen. Why did I come in here?
I
So
know.
yeah, so I can sympathize with that. That's why you need to take ginkgo biloba.
Okay, I think I will be doing that. Thank you. Well, today we are so lucky and privileged to have Marti Benjamin with us, who retired to Baja, California, Mexico. She in her past had 3 distinct careers. One in a child abuse prevention program. Wasn't that in Oregon, I believe?
Oregon and Washington and nationally.
Okay. Then in the healthcare industry, nonprofit and corporate worlds. And then as a professional certified coach working with entrepreneurs and their teams, which sort of morphed into career coaching for individuals. Marti and I partnered to develop a community discussion group that we call Tranquillo. And we meet once a month on Sundays, and it truly is a joy in my life. But even more so are the meetings Marti and I have together to discuss what is going to be the question we're going to discuss in the group. And I tell you, that time with her, about a couple of hours each month, is some of the best conversations I've had, really, in my entire life.
Tranquillo, what does that mean?
To be tranquil, peaceful,
of course.
calm.
That would make, tranquillo. I should have been able to figure that out.
So, Marti, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And you had talked to me at one point, or written to me actually via email. We were discussing this, probably along the topics of even for Tranquillo. But you said that you had developed a personal statement for yourself, which was to inspire growth. How did you develop that? How did you come to that?
Well, let's go in the Wayback Time machine, back to my young adult years. I was engaged in child abuse prevention programs and doing some volunteer work and serving on boards of directors and nonprofits and those kinds of things. And people were often talking about kind of what's your purpose here? You know, why are we here, each of us individually, and what is it that you have to offer that's different than what someone else has to offer? And I always thought that was very intriguing and had no clue how to answer that question. It's like, I don't know. I really had not, well, first, I don't think as a young person that I had really given that a lot of thought, that each of us is unique in that. I had sort of embraced a lot of what we should be, you know, from the environment, from my family, from my community, from my peer group, my professional group, whatever. There were sort of both spoken and unspoken parameters about what we should be or what we should care about or how we should act or how we should look or how we should talk or whatever else.
So societal expectations.
Societal expectations, and actually kind of internalizing those to frequently judging myself about how am I doing. And of course, if I was judging myself, I was also judging everybody else too. It's like, I may not have been very direct about that, but it was like, oh, okay, so if this is the standard, constantly kind of measuring.
Yes. Measuring
Am
yourself
I
and
coming
others.
close? Am I further away? Oh, maybe if I act more like that person, or, oh, I see that behavior, I like that, or that seems to get a good response for that person. Just kind of observing and trying to sort through that, trying to figure that out. Because by my late 20s, I had already done pretty much a 180-degree turn from what I'd been raised to do. So in my throughout my childhood and young adulthood, I really only thought that I could be a wife and a mother.
Oh, yeah. So gender roles as well as expectations that society and our parents have had for us. What I think is interesting, what you just said, since I was an educator, I wish that we had with children early on help them to develop their own personal statements or to figure out what is it that they love, not what other people were telling them they were good at or, you know, all those messages, but instead to really look inside themselves. I'm not sure how we could have maybe done that, but to explore that more.
Well, I think there's been progress on that.
Yes, I do think so too.
I think today I think today children are allowed more latitude in exploring possibilities. So when they say, I mean, when I was a kid, if you were a girl, you could be a nurse or a teacher or a mom. Those were the options. You know, if you said you wanted to be an astronaut, no, you couldn't do that. If you said you wanted to be a model, no, you couldn't do that. If you said you wanted to be, you know, whatever. Those were kind of the things. Then I would point out that both the nurses and the teachers also had to go home and do their full-time job as homemaker, mother, spouse, etc. So it was, do you want to take on a second career?
Yes.
Or do you just want the first one that you're pegged into?
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
But I think it's the societal programming that we are all exposed to. I think it was the Jesuits that said already 400 years ago, give us a child until the age of 7 and we will tell you what sort of human being he's going to be. So that's a big thing to overcome, because it's all those not thought about statements that we hand out and say sort of offhandedly that those little brains absorb, and then it becomes part of
who they
what
are.
Their belief system is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So by my late 20s, I was married and divorced and had 2 children, and was single parenting and out in the community more than I had ever imagined I could be. So I had first volunteered and then ended up being hired for a role with a local Head Start program. And so as I stepped my foot into that, I don't know why, instead of doing as, well, yes, I do. Actually, typically my style would have been to very gingerly stick my toes in it, but I jumped in like wholeheartedly and got very, very involved. And it was because of a wonderful woman who became my mentor, who was the director of that program.
See, I think that's key too.
I absolutely.
Especially the women, but it could be men too, you know, that become a mentor for us, that see in us what we can't see in ourselves, or that we haven't been able to appreciate and see in ourselves because our lives haven't allowed that, or, you know, our education hasn't even allowed that, right? Yeah.
So I think that was truly the beginning of understanding that I was not just a carbon copy. You know, I wasn't a copy of my parents, and I didn't need to be just like my sisters, that I was a unique individual. And that mentor did, in fact, give me feedback, positive feedback about things I never would have assumed to be my strengths. And so I loved it. I relished that. I just soaked it in and embraced it. And wow, somebody important, somebody who knows me and cares about me and whose opinion I value thinks that I have this particular talent. And in retrospect, I realized that what she was telling me about myself that I hadn't recognized before was talent, not skill. So skills are learned.
Right.
Talent is more innate. And I don't know that I had ever gotten feedback about my talents. I've gotten feedback about talents I didn't have. Like I knew very well that I could not carry a tune. I could not sing. I heard all of that.
So what were your talents?
Well, you have to hold on for a bit for that.
All right. Sorry.
So we became very close. And one day my role in the Head Start program at that time was as the coordinator of the parent involvement and volunteer component of the program. And so one day, she and I were sitting in the park having a planning session, kind of like the way you and I do, Mary, when we start planning Tranquilo. And we were doing this training, and she said to me, well, you're a much better trainer than I am. I was like, what? This woman was on a pedestal in my life. I just thought she walked on water and could do no wrong. And for her to say that to me, it was like, it was one of the most incredible gifts I've ever received in my life. It stands out for me. Maybe other people had said something similar and I had not been in a place to hear it, but it stands out for me that, she actually focused on something I could do better and different than other people were doing. And so training and working with parents in the program and motivating volunteers and all of those sorts of things. And I had, at that point in time, not yet pursued education beyond high school. So I actually got married slightly before I graduated from high school and did not go on to school until much later. My late 20s, I actually then went back to school. And so I started at a community college, and all of a sudden, during the first quarter, like halfway through the first quarter, I realized that I had a 4.0 GPA going. And I was
You surprised
flabbergasted.
yourself.
I was flabbergasted by that, because nowhere in my experience had I ever been smart. Or, I'd been a mediocre student in high school. I had never been. Well, once I got that, I couldn't let it go.
No, of course.
So then, on my quest to learn who I was, I figured that some of it had to do with how hard I worked. And so I started working harder and harder and harder. Like, sometimes 2 jobs and other activities and volunteering and da-da-da-da-da. And I started hearing things like, wow, I don't know how you do it. Okay, I have to keep doing this. I have to keep doing this. And so I ended up in this career. I ended up developing a couple of demonstration programs in child abuse prevention. Then I ended up being the state director for Parents Anonymous of Oregon, and developed statewide chapters of programs specifically for parents who were struggling with their parenting skills. And many of them had been had a family intervention by Child Protective Services, had been charged with child abuse or neglect. And I learned an incredible amount in that role. Now, again, I still had not gone to college by that time, but I just learned an incredible amount. I learned from those parents. I learned amazing things from those parents and from the community groups that I was a part of. So I learned something at that point about leadership. I went, oh, okay, so maybe that's part of who I am and what I have to contribute to this world. And so I started college, went through those, I don't know, I think it took me 6 years to do my degree because I did it while I was working. But I ended up graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Management Communications and went up with a 4.0 because I couldn't let it go once I got it. And with exhaustion because I was just pushing myself endlessly, thinking that what I really had to offer was more productivity than other people. So I really got confused in that whole thing about using talents versus just working hard and pushing hard. So still that whole question, who are you? Well, it would come up in all sorts of settings. I decided that I was going to leave Oregon, and I did. I went to San Francisco and I transitioned into healthcare. And I did that, I have to say, quite frankly, I was just totally burned out because working child abuse is very difficult. It's very stressful and very difficult, regardless of what you're doing. It's just very difficult. And I came to the point of saying, I need to see some healthy functioning here. I have too much dysfunction around me. I need to see some healthy functioning, which I think was a part of my identifying myself as well. That I came to understand that I was empathic, and if I were not careful, I could take all of that on, and I could carry that pain as though it were my own, which didn't really help anyone. I mean, it wasn't just standing beside people with empathy and helping them, but it was sometimes taking their burden and trying to be responsible for them. So in healthcare, I had hoped that there would be kind of some guardrails, that I would not end up being quite so pulled into it. And I specifically went into marketing and healthcare, thinking that was going to be a path that I would enjoy. And, back and forth, all of these personality assessment things kind of came up, and, you do them from time to time, everything from Myers-Briggs to Facebook posts. Well, I guess Facebook wasn't a thing back then, but in magazines, what kind of dog are you? A beagle or a golden retriever?
Yeah, a personality test, yes.
Many of them, I love to refer to them as parlor games.
Yes, yeah.
If you don't take them seriously, they're good for a laugh and they're harmless, but not to be taken seriously. So, healthcare, did a variety of roles in healthcare, and then came to a point of really feeling like this system wasn't really something I could believe in. I was working in a very innovative early stage company that was working in disease management, helping patients with congestive heart failure to identify their early symptoms and get treatment before they ended up being hospitalized. Because we were an investor-backed early stage company, the pressure was truly phenomenal. And for example, we had a new client in New York. And to bring that client on board, I flew from Reno, Nevada, where the office was located. My home was still in the Bay Area, but I was I was working in Reno, Nevada, and commuting
Oh my gosh.
on a weekly basis. Wow. We brought this new client on. I was the vice president of operations, and I flew back to New York to do trainings 6 weeks in a row, meaning literally I left, I flew, I either went immediately to do a training and then slept and flew back, or got there, had a night's sleep, went out the next day, did one training and flew back.
Wow.
Which was just physically brutal.
So you went from a very emotionally draining job to a very physically draining job.
And emotional.
Yeah.
It was both.
We'll need to take a break right now, and we'll be right back.